Okay, thank you, Laurel. When people ask me to speak, they usually get ready for an hour and a half or a good fight. And the only thing that protects that is I have prepared remarks. So we're safe, we're going to get out of here on time. But for that, I need my glasses. And sorry about the fight earlier, but anyway, I think we'll all recover. Anyway, I couldn't be more delighted to be receiving this award with Frank McKenna's name on it. There is much to admire, respect, and even love about you, Frank. But what I love the most is your absolutely contagious bias for action. It's a pleasure and a treat to be here with Karina and Karen and Fred and Louis. And I want to thank you, and thank you to the Public Policy Forum. And also thank you to all of the 2,500 souls on Fogo Island, and to the brilliant and passionate team at Shorefast and its sibling organizations for their unwavering care and dedication to our home. So, what if we could invent a machine that would make us healthier and happier and safer and smarter? Well, we actually have such a machine. It's called community. We just don't take very good care of it. I want to make an advocation for reorienting our individual and collective energies to work on strengthening communities. And by communities, I mean proximate communities, physical, embodied places where people have shared memories and shared aspirations. Healthy communities are not folksy and parochial places. They are the basic building blocks of our human lives. And they serve as coherent foundations from which to navigate the broader world. Communities are complex adaptive systems, complex adaptive coalitions, actually. And importantly, they include the natural world. Communities are webs of relationships. The quality of our very lives is the quality of our relationships. And community is actually where we learn to live in relationship. To maintain healthy relationships, we have to find a way to modulate economic logic, to give space to natural logic and social logic. We humans pride ourselves on being different from the other creatures because apparently we collaborate better. Communities are actually the architecture for collaboration. We can't repair the world one person at a time, but we have a pretty good chance of repairing it one community at a time, because healthy communities take care of people. We've had decades of a particular kind of globalization that was agnostic to place, and we are now struggling with the ecological, social, and political consequences. We unleashed globalization before we were ready. There were no global rules. Our tribal empathy and institutions and governance systems weren't ready. Money could go anywhere and do anything. In many cases, we severed the role of money in communities. This has contributed to distortions in our very understanding of value and has diminished the strength, agency, and function of communities. As money moved away from being committed to place, individual communities have become economically precarious and power has shifted to the corporate realm. Value is increasingly measured in economic terms. The overvaluation of financial capital has contributed to a crisis of meaning. How do we make sense of the value of anything, including our very selves, if money is the only yardstick? Weakened communities cannot play their proper roles in holding us together, in providing affirmation of life and a sense of location, orientation, and identity. The crisis of belonging that results from this plays out in our individual despair, rage, and of course populism. Our posture and actions toward communities shows what we value. And without communities, it's easy to see how life can deteriorate to a zero-sum game. We need to develop new ways of seeing value, new ways of leveraging inherent assets to generate economic well-being. At the center of a community is its economy. And actually, shouldn't the economy be about community economies? How do we push opportunities back to communities? How do we release enabling feelings in communities? It will not be quick work to mend the damage caused by monopolization, wrong-minded globalization, and the financialization of the world. To start, we need a coherent vision for evolving a community-centric architecture that grows capacity and agency inside communities and makes the best use of technology to network them into the whole. Online networks must not be confused with real communities, but they are hugely important to the knowledge sharing and commerce and have an important role to play in strengthening real communities in real places. It is possible to create global networks of exchange for money and ideas without creating global institutions. We need to apply ourselves to examining how some of the foundational economic and political institutions and relationships can be altered to serve and support communities better. And we need to become proficient at discovering, connecting, mobilizing, and amplifying the building blocks that exist in every community. The good news is that there seems to be a new energy in the world for place. Even The Economist magazine declared last fall, place matters too. And happily, Canada seems to have taken some very positive policy positions on internet availability for communities. We need to give equal attention to the critical matter of transportation access. As was pointed out in the Atlantic Growth Strategy Report, these two are foundational. Everything else starts from there. We don't have to provide decent internet access and transportation access to all the communities, only the ones we want to keep. Some hard decisions lie ahead. Let's not let it happen through atrophy. Let's actively and courageously discuss and decide. Some communities may not make it, but we certainly don't need to lose all of them. We must work toward practical projects that create global reach for local initiatives and reorient our public policy thinking toward growing and supporting capacities of communities to exert agency over their own futures. There is a public policy history of incenting companies to locate or expand in communities that are suffering economically. This seems to have had mixed success. At the moment, there is a move toward incenting individuals to locate to disadvantaged communities. Places like Puglia and Vermont and Tulsa, Oklahoma are paying $10,000 a person, I think you can't be my age, to move there. It might work, but it's a bit like incenting companies. Some people may come, they may just as likely leave again. Instead, what if we spent our money and our energies on the parts of the puzzle that won't move, the communities themselves? And maybe that's an and, not an or. A community is, of course, the sum of its parts. And this is precisely where some coherent structure needs to evolve and where capacity building has to happen. We need to bring together local governments, businesses, associations, and citizens into some kind of coalition that can work for and speak for the whole of a community. For example, on Fogo Island, we are experimenting with something we call an economic development partnership, which has representatives from all of these actors. If an action, for example, was needed to upgrade in a new ownership model the airstrip on Fogo Island, it would be the Economic Development Partnership that would come to the table. We think that's a step forward from the often cloudy, amorphous source of will and power and decision-making in communities, which left unto themselves can be terribly self-canceling. If we strengthen the capacities of communities to act, the design and implementation of policy programs would be easier because communities know their people and they know their institutions. So the opportunity for misuse of programs would be much reduced. I will end now by saying that living in community is essential for us to be able to express our humanity. We have to come close in order to recognize the human in each other. And if we can succeed in that, I think we'll have a pretty good chance at the rest of it. Thank you very much.